Hello, hello. Welcome to Divine Conversations. I am Deanna Kirk, your co host today, and joining me is,
I'm Tatiana Burgum, and I am excited to be here.
yes, me too. We're going to have an amazing episode today. I'm super excited to introduce you all, if you don't already know her, to Kelis Houston. Kelis Houston is the founder of Village Arms, and her focuses on families, preservation, and reunification through parenting education, in-home visits, resource acquisition, and advocacy with a cultural base. And so she's going to talk more about Village Arms and her nonprofit. But what I know her from and when I first saw her was and saw you is with your amazing work, Kelis, with the African American Family Preservation Act. Like I just started researching and diving in because of the issues that was happening with Black families here in Duluth. And
Mhm.
as we dug in, you kept popping up
Yeah.
with just the work you were doing, and you were right in the middle of the session, and it was like, oh my goodness, I need to talk to her. I want to meet her. This is so amazing. Like, and then at first I was like, no one is dealing with this. No one is working on this because I had been in Texas. But then it was like, no, you actually have been working on it for years and years. And so we are so honored to have
Thank
you
you.
here joining us on our podcast today. So we'll just turn the mic over to you and just tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for that. I'm honored to be here. Kelis Houston, Executive Director of Village Arms. It's a Christ-centered organization that I started to support African American families that are impacted by child protection. And I'm also chair of the NAACP's Child Protection Committee. I started the first ever committee under the NAACP branch to address the injustice that our families face when involved with child protection. I also serve as policy consultant to social services agencies that are looking to reduce disparities for their families. And we provide community trainings as well to universities, social work students, hospitals, clinics. We provide mandated reporter training. We do a lot. We do the mandated reporter training primarily because our mandated reporters are a big contributor to racial disproportionality and overrepresentation due to the bias that exists within who they're reporting, why they're reporting, and things of that sort. So we want to help reshape the entry to child protection by really informing the public as to what's occurring and shining the light on alternative ways that they can support families rather than report them to child protection. Excuse me.
Welcome to Divine Conversations Podcast, a space where faith meets real life and community stories lead the way. We're here to lift up the voices of BIPOC families navigating housing, healing, mental health, and so much more. Whether you're a parent, a provider, or someone walking alongside our communities, you belong here. Each episode, we share honest conversations, resources, and real stories of resilience. Together, we're creating a space for healing, hope, and divine conversations, where healing begins and stories rise. So we'll just jump right in. I think the first thing that we want to know is what in your life or your work made you say, I have to do something for Black families?
Yeah, great question. Child protection was not on my radar. This is not my dream work or dream job. I thank God for blessing the work of my hands as I did get started in advocacy, but this is not what I wanted to do. I started out working in emergency shelter about 15 years ago, and that's where I started to see and notice the overrepresentation of Black children in foster care. So I was working at a shelter in Hennepin County that was the first stop for children when they were just removed. So when the police yanked them out of the home, they came to us. When the social workers yanked them out of the home, they came to us first before they divvied them out to different foster homes, residential treatment, or wherever it is that they were placing our babies. I was really young and naive. I didn't have a lot of experience or knowledge of child protection because my family was never involved with it. And I had the assumption, I think like most of society does, is that if a family is involved with child protection, they must have done something horrible to deserve it. And I found out very quickly within this role that that wasn't true. And so within a week of me working there, I had a little notebook in my hand. I didn't understand what I was seeing, but I was taking notes. I'm seeing that 100% of the kids on the unit would be African American. I'm seeing their social workers work really hard to place white children and not as hard to place Black children. So our children were in shelter for the max amount of the stay, which was 90 days, when we would see white children placed within a week or so. I saw the trauma that children experience when they're separated from their families. I was able to read through a lot of the petitions because they unfortunately provide the children with the petition as well that outlines all these horrible allegations against their parents. And I'm looking through it with the kids, and the kids are like, well, can you help me understand this, Miss Kelis? Can you read this, etc.? And they're like, well, that didn't happen. This didn't happen. And so seeing this, getting to know the parents, seeing that more often than not, they were non-abusive parents, this led me to want to have a voice in the courtroom. So I started to volunteer as a guardian ad litem before taking a full-time position as a cultural specialist guardian in 2 separate counties. And I saw how the counties and the courts were working together to perpetuate disparities. And I'm just looking around like, this is wrong. Like, the allegations are false. The social workers aren't doing what they're supposed to. They aren't following the law. It was just so much. But that led me into community to start organizing. I started the NAACP Child Protection Committee. I leveraged that position to start having conversations with the governor's office, DHS, all of the decision makers within child protection. And within this time, I'm doing my own research and found that child welfare disproportionality is what I was seeing in real time in this shelter. So I started to research local data and then national data and found that this has been a crisis in our community for 60 plus years. That has been not only that, but my time in shelter has been the fire behind me, because I've done this work as a volunteer the past 7 years, just for free, right? And who does anything for free for that long? But it's so egregious. The harm and the trauma to the children is so great that it's hard for me to not do the work. But I leveraged that position with the NAACP, met with all these decision makers, found that they were very aware of child welfare disproportionality. They even name it in DHS's reports, but no one had a sense of urgency to do anything about it. And in 2017, after several visits to the Capitol and us providing testimony, I wrote the African American Family Preservation Act. It was initially authored by Representative Moran and Senator Hayden, and it was just kind of a snowball effect from there.
Wow.
And the law was signed into law last year. Sorry, I wanted to add that.
Yay.
That's
So
such a
it
huge
was it
achievement.
took 8 years, right? Or 7?
7 to 8 years. Yes.
7 to 8 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely. A lot of bureaucracy.
That's determination.
A lot of political games. A lot of red tape. A lot of people make money off of the trafficking of our children through this system. And so although they're aware of what's occurring, not everyone is willing to speak up about it. Not everyone is willing to push back on it because of that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And the work you've done is truly just, I mean, it's amazing to hear you talk about how far you've pushed and how far things have come, and even just maybe doesn't feel like a short time to you, but it, in the time frame of things, it is, to get so much pushed through and to see so much change. One question I have for you, and I think as leaders and even the just families in general who are within this system, you've seen some incredibly hard moments, and so I am curious, what keeps you going when it gets heavy?
Prayer, a lot of prayer. I'm in my Bible every day. I lean on the Lord. I have to, because this work is heavy. It's traumatic for me.
Yes.
So just imagine what the families are dealing with that go through this. But it's hard for me to even be in child protection court today because I'm dealing with PTSD as a result of this work. And so
Yes.
a lot of prayer, just really staying close to the Lord and asking him for strength when I feel like, because this last session, I said, this is it. I'm not coming back. We hitting the streets. It's just, we taking the gloves off. Like I was just ready to fight in any
Yep.
kind of way we needed to. I wasn't asking those folks again to do the right thing by our people, because it's traumatic to constantly pour out your heart, to unveil this trauma, to say, hey, this is what's happening to my community, and to be,
Mm-hmm.
it fell on deaf ears oftentimes, and that was just, I was done. I was tired. So short answer, God.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And he heard you. 7, the year of completion.
Amen. Amen.
And this,
Amen.
yes. So let's talk a little bit about understanding the system and fighting back. When Black families are overrepresented in child protection, can you break down why that is? And for people who may not realize, like, what's really going on behind the scenes? Why are they overrepresented?
Yeah, unfortunately, within our system, the child protection law and language is very vague and subjective. So even if there's no abuse occurring in the home, under the neglect statute, I call it the catchall statute, they place a lot of families, like 80% or something like that, across races are coming,
Oh,
60 to
wow.
80%. I want to get that right. 60 to 80% of the families that are involved with the system are involved because of so-called neglect. And by statute, that can mean anything, including inadequate food, clothing, or shelter. So what I saw oftentimes as a guardian and just as an advocate on the ground with these families is, when the social worker couldn't call it abuse, they'll name it neglect. And then they can create
Mm-hmm.
this narrative around the family that supports their position against that parent or against those parents. And so, and also our families are under a lot of surveillance, right? With us, a lot of our families living at or below the poverty guideline, we're dealing with a lot of mandated reporters in some of these systems. And these reporters are the ones that are over reporting. In Minneapolis, in the Minneapolis school district, our schools are the ones that are over reporting our children. In 2000, I don't remember what year it was now, but there was a school that had like I don't want to get the data wrong. They had a very small percentage, like 16% African American student population, and 99% of their costs to child protection were on that very small population. So that's a contributor as well. The bias that exists once the social worker is involved with the family plays a huge role. And so their data even shows us that white families are coming into the system for less serious allegations, but our families are the ones that are assigned to a family investigation at higher rates, that are facing child removals at higher rates, and then termination of parental rights at the end of our cases. If your own data is showing you that our families are coming in for less serious allegations, why are we the majority of those at the end of our cases that lose our children forever, or our children lose us forever? Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
So it's just bias throughout the entire process. Not having appropriate service providers. We see a lot of families dealing with issues related to their mental health. And instead of being connected with the appropriate resource, they're involved with child protection. Child protection is a governmental system that is only designed to respond to child abuse. If you're dealing with domestic violence in the home, they can't help with that. If you have chemical health, they can't help with these things. We need to start to divert these families to appropriate community-based agencies that can better meet their needs and focus child protection on those cases where there's actual abuse against children. And that's a very small percentage out of the, what was it? I should have looked at my numbers. I'm good with my data. Okay. You'll get it in the training when we do it in Duluth. But out of the 13,000 some children that they displaced, only 6% were removed for physical abuse and like 3% for sexual abuse.
Wow.
These are not just,
goodness.
highly abusive parents. There's just situations and circumstances occurring in the home. Sometimes it impacts the child, and other times it doesn't, but they don't do proper assessments to determine how or if the child was impacted, as the law states that they're supposed to do. There's supposed to always be an adverse observable impact to the child. And they don't even ask those questions. I had to stop a removal a couple of years ago with this grandmother who was calling me frantically, saying, hey, they're headed to the school to take my grandbabies. They won't let me intervene. They won't let me get the kids, et cetera, et cetera. I finally talked to the mom. She had gotten into a fight with her boyfriend Saturday. The police were headed to her children's school on Monday to remove the kids. The kids weren't even home when they got into the fight. No one asked these questions. Thankfully, we were able to stop that removal, and the grandmother was able to pick the kids up, and they didn't even know what was going on, thank God. But that's some of the things that we're dealing with on the ground with these families.
What type of assessment are you referring to? Is it a specific one, or you're just saying in general?
Say it again, I'm
needs
sorry.
To be like, is there a specific assessment that you're talking about, or that needs to be done that isn't being done, or are you just saying an assessment in general of these situations?
The investigation. That's the assessment that I'm speaking of.
I see what
Why
you're
aren't you asking those questions? Where were if this is child protection and it's about the safety of the children, why is no one asking? Were the children home when this occurred? Right. What was going on? When we talk about drug use, because when Trump and others started to state that you couldn't, or Biden, I'm sorry, started to state that you couldn't remove children based on poverty, right? Because people were making noise about this neglect statute that, of course, is connected to poverty. All of a sudden, the data started to change, and they started to say, well, it's not neglect, it's parental drug use. That's the leading reason that we're involved with these families. It is not. The data is being manipulated. I'll just say that. The data is being manipulated. And even with drug use, do the children know that you use? Are they home? Is it impacting your ability to safely care for the children? Those are some of the questions that should be asked that are not. And by law, that's what they're supposed to be asking. Again, an adverse observable impact to the child.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to back up just a little bit to when you talked about that stat. I believe it was 6% with that school, who was mandated reporting. What were some of the reasons, if you remember, what were some of the reasons why the school was calling, making reports on the parents? Because I think that's good to know for the parents that are listening.
Now that I don't know. So I was calling to the county attorney's office, who runs the Be at School program. So they monitor truancy and try to intervene with the schools and the parents before the child is reported based on, absences and being tardy, et cetera. They were so concerned, and this was Hennepin County, they were so concerned by their data that they created a PowerPoint training to start to provide to schools to show them that they were over-reporting Black children. So they just showed me they showed me that it was every school in the Minneapolis district that was over-reporting except one. And this was a white attorney that brought this up to me. He said, this is the only school that's not over-reporting. And the only difference here is that there's a Black social worker. That was the only difference.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So they were so concerned about this that they started to provide their own trainings to the schools to say, hey, are you engaging with the family? Are you, if you're concerned about, and this is an example of a call that they received. The school reported that the child had eaten pizza for breakfast, right? They called child protection because of that, because the kid had pizza for breakfast.
That's ridiculous.
It sounds funny, but
that's so unfortunate.
It can cause so much harm, because the more calls a family receives, it increases the likelihood that they'll be screened in for an investigation. And so a lot of our families are assigned to investigation because of those, they call it discretionary reasons. And that's based on the frequent number of calls that they've received on them. So even if it's a frivolous call and the child protection intake worker is laughing about it, it's still documented and it could still harm that family. But yeah, that's one example. But no, I didn't get a chance to go through the reasons that they were calling, just the different schools that were reporting.
If a family has been investigated or involved in child protection, what are like the first 2 or 3 things they should do to protect themselves?
It's hard to ask this when you're being accused of one of the worst
Mm-hmm.
things that you could possibly be accused of, and that's harming your child. But staying calm is one. I don't want
Mm,
to use the word cooperate. I hate that when they say she's non-cooperative, she's non-compliant,
Mm-hmm.
etc. But stay calm so that you can think clearly. We know it's wrong, and it's hard to ask a parent to stay calm when there's false allegations being made about them related to
Right.
the safety of their children. But everything that they do is going to be documented and held against them. So I always ask, please stay calm first and foremost. And don't panic. Don't become combative, because they can use that as a reason to come back with the police and remove your children.
Right.
I've seen it
mm,
countless times. So no, you don't have to open the door. You don't have to talk to them. But if they claim that they have grave concerns about the safety of your children and you don't open the door, you don't have the conversation, they can come back with the police and a petition and remove the child and force you to interact with them, unfortunately.
Mm.
um I always say to ask a lot of questions, ask who the investigator is, their role, what the allegations are, be very specific, ask for dates, times, who was present, what are the details of
mm,
the allegations, because you have a right to understand the reason for the investigation. Seek legal advice or family advocacy support immediately. Don't try to face these folks by yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Always have someone present. Um, if you can't afford an attorney, um, sometimes they offer free legal counsel. So you can call and just ask questions to better prepare yourself. Have some family members there for that visit. Document everything. I can't say that enough.
Mm-hmm.
Write
mm.
down or record, where legal, every interaction with the agency.
Yep.
So names, dates, times, what was said. Keep a record of all your correspondence, safety plans, reports, etc. Any proof that parents have that can refute the allegation, I tell them to start to organize that immediately, so that if it does advance to court, or just in general, you can provide some proof to counter what the allegations are against you. If you're involved with PTA, get something from the school that shows that. If you're keeping up with the children's medical appointments, get a copy of the records to show that you're taking the kids to the doctor. If there was an incident, because they over-report our children, if they have a bruise, this is research that's done not just in Minnesota but across the country. If our kids are taken to the doctor with a bruise, they're more likely to call it abuse. So if we have a dad who started to record everything. His kid was on the skateboard and fell and hurt himself, and so dad immediately pulled his camera out and started to record. And it's so sad that we have to do this, but those are
It
some
really is.
steps that we have to take to face this unjust, unfair, and just irresponsible system. So record everything and have someone present.
You know what? That's good. I had not heard that before, but you are correct, especially if you've had something in the past.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's good advice. Thank you.
Be prepared. Be prepared. Brace yourself
Mhm.
Right.
for it. And take those lessons learned, especially if you've had a previous termination of parental rights. They want to stay in your lives forever if you've had a previous termination of
Yep.
parental rights. So always
Yep.
documenting and keeping your records organized is a great tool.
Thank you. We do want to talk a little bit about this African American Family Preservation Act. So you fought so hard for this, Kelis. Thank you so much. In simple terms, what does this mean for your community and for our state?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we fought very hard for it. I will say that the language, very strong language that we started with, is not what we ended up with, because so many
Mm,
people have a say in what's child protection law. So we have to go through the County Attorneys Association, the Social Services
okay.
Association, DHS. I mean, all these folks that again benefit from the trafficking of our
Right.
children have a say in what's in our child protection law. So I will say it's a great start though, and we are shifting the conversations here and forcing these counties to start to pay attention to how they engage with our community. So I'm not negating anything in terms of the
Of course.
value of the law. I would just say that we still have work to do.
Right.
But one of the huge things is that it requires the social services agencies to make active efforts rather than reasonable efforts. It requires them to make, and active efforts just requires that, not just active efforts requires the agencies to make strong ongoing efforts to support African American and now other disproportionately represented children and families. So this means involving them in involving the family in all decisions, services, and case planning, considering their cultural and social values when providing services, taking continuous action to keep families together and prevent children from being removed from their homes. And then, if removal happens, working actively to reunite the child with the family as soon as possible. It really holds the agency to a higher standard than reasonable efforts. Reasonable efforts, which they're currently offering, I mean, there's no standard to it. You could just say you tried uh,
Right.
in
Right.
terms of kinship. Well, yeah, I
Yep.
caught the dad. No, now we're asking
Yep.
more questions. What number did you use? Did you get an answer? Did you leave a voicemail? Did you go to his home? Things like that that will require some more checks and balances than, yeah, I tried. Because
Right.
who's to say if you did or you didn't? In a nutshell, and I try to go over this quickly, they now have a duty to prevent out of home placement and promote family reunification. So they have to make every effort to prevent the removal of the child in the first place. They are required now to do a safety plan. So before seeking court approval for removal, they must collaborate with the family to create a safety plan that allows the child to stay in the home. This is different than what they currently do, because the plan has to address the child's safety, but also consider cultural and economic needs as well.
Right.
So if there's housing, things of that sort, they have to work now to meet the needs of the family rather than just take the child. Because that's the easiest thing that you can do,
Right.
is just remove the child and say, hey, get it together, mom. But now they have to do more hand holding. And the safety plan I do want to add is not required in cases of sexual abuse or severe harm. And I'm lied on a lot by folks that believe in this system and believe in white supremacy. They'll say, "Oh, she doesn't care about child safety. It's just family preservation." No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
The vast majority of the families that you're engaging are not abusing the children. That's the
Right.
population that I'm fighting for. The folks that are sadistic and really abusing their kids, I don't
Right.
touch those cases. I'll be the first one to say, hey, yep, where's grandma? But that's what we will do. You won't just take them and displace them into, white stranger care. We will engage to say, hey, where's the grandmother? Where's the dad? Where's the aunt? Where are the other people connected to this child that we can get them placed with, because you aren't in a position to safely care for this child. But family preservation and child safety should not be seen as oppositional, or the family preservation
Right.
is child safety, because we have to think
Right.
about the
Yes.
Right.
psychological safety of that child as well. And we have to stop ignoring the data and the research that shows
Yep.
that children fare better when they remain at home and or connected to family and kin. Children that are
Yep.
displaced into foster care have horrible outcomes related to
Yes.
Yes.
education, their mental health, homelessness, incarceration, etc. The list goes on and on. A lot of the children are placed on psychotropic drugs very young after removal, because the trauma of removal runs
Yep.
so deep and no one's really addressing it. And if you're working with
Right.
families, the first thing the therapist wants to ask is, what
Yep.
did your parent do to you that's causing you to, have anxiety or PTSD or act out in this foster home? Really ignoring the fact that this child has been torn from everything that they've known, everybody that they love. They're placed in these strange environments, and
Mhm.
expected to just continue as usual, like they're not
Right.
even human. Our children aren't
Mhm.
humanized. Those types of considerations, those that I just named, they do have those when they're displacing white children. So you don't see a lot of white children placed in Black foster homes.
Mhm.
The only time I saw that was when the child had severe behavioral issues and they couldn't place them
Mm.
anywhere else, so that they would place them in North Minneapolis. But you didn't see that very often, that they would place a white child with black fosters.
Yeah.
Let me keep going. Sorry, I have my notes here because I do want to at least hit all of the bullet points because it is a big bill.
Yes, take your time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, it places restrictions on out of home placement. It requires that they engage and help the non custodial parent. So, within 48 hours, and I asked for immediately, and I asked for before they remove a child, find the other parent and talk to that other
Mhm.
parent. But
Yes.
again, we had to compromise and go back and forth with DHS and others, and it landed at 48 hours. So within 48 hours, they have to engage that non-custodial parent and help him or her become the quote unquote placement option before they
Okay.
displace the child into stranger care. The law places a preference on transfer of custody rather than a termination of parental right. This is
Mhm.
important because, as I stated
Yes.
It
earlier,
is.
Yeah.
there's a lot of bias related to who's assigned a transfer of custody versus who's assigned a termination of parental rights. So this law is requiring that they place a preference on transfer of custody so that the parent within 2 years can go back and petition the court
Yes.
for a
Yes.
transfer
Yes.
of custody so that they can have their custody reinstated. Um, Opposed to a TPR, which is very difficult
Yep.
for them to have reinstatement after. Although we did make some changes to the law with with this with this new act,
Right.
so
The
they have.
TPR.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those changes? And
Yep.
are they retroactive?
Are they what? I'm sorry.
Would they be retroactive? Say if someone had their rights terminated
I
this
wish.
year or last year.
I
Oh, okay.
wish.
Yeah.
This is the work that we have to continue to do. We have to
Right.
go to the Capitol to say, hey, we need more protections in place. We had a very tight and strong we have very tight and strong language related to the termination of parental rights. By the time the Social Services Association and the county attorneys got done with it, it looked very similar to what's currently in law related to the
Right.
termination of parental rights.
Mm.
But what we do have is limits placed on it. So they can't terminate parental rights based solely on a parent's inability to complete case plan requirements. So we would
Oh,
see
that's big.
That's
That's
huge.
huge because that's what we see.
Yeah.
that's
They
what we
didn't.
see
They didn't go
all
to
the
therapy.
time.
They didn't take their UAs, and
Yep.
these are young, young moms, 17, 18, 19,
Yeah.
losing their kids forever because they didn't cooperate. They didn't want to
Mhm.
Yeah.
keep going to therapy and living that trauma over and over again. They didn't want to, they didn't show up for all their UAs. They went off on them.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That was why it was placed in there. Um, I got tired, and I'm tired of seeing petitions, termination of parental rights petition with 14 case plan requirements, and the parent didn't
Right.
complete 2 of them,
Yes.
and they're
Yep.
moving
Yep.
forward with the TPR.
Yep.
Just 2. And that could just be
Yep.
I missed a couple of my supervised visits because I'm
Exactly.
taking the city bus or I had to work and you
Yep.
wouldn't change my schedule. Or,
Yep.
it could be a number of things, but if the safety of the child is not an issue, if whatever allegations or claims you made against the parent has been resolved, why are you then still moving forward with the termination of parental rights?
Yep.
And I'm talking about this plain. I don't know another way to talk about it because it's just wrong. It can't be
Yeah.
packaged
Right.
pretty. It can't be packaged
Yep.
in a way that, sounds good or is it's just
Mhm.
flat out wrong what they're doing to families. And when I think about what's happening to the children as a result of these actions, it's more often than not to punish the parent with no regard to the fact that you're
Yeah.
ruining this child's life. So
Right.
I just have to talk about it the way that it is. And
That's
Absolutely.
right.
that. They put a lot of exceptions into it. Parental rights can only be terminated if the parent has committed serious crimes, sexual abuse, murder, severe child endangerment, or violent crimes. I didn't want the violent crimes section in there. I didn't want the murder section in there. Do you have anything in your background related to harming children? That's all we should be considering, because we have a father, if he in his 20s, was running with the gang and doing silly things,
Right.
why are we still punishing him now? And he's never harmed a child at all. And in fact, has changed his life. So we wanted to keep all of those considerations in there. But again, we have people outside of our community that don't like us, don't believe that we love our children, or our appropriate parents. And they had a say in it. So there are some exceptions to it. But the biggest thing is that they can't just move forward with the termination based solely on that case plan. When we do our training, I'll go more in depth of, the exceptions that they made, because again, it mirrors what's currently in TPR statute. So we have more fighting to do. But it's still huge. The preference on TLC versus TPR, and then not just because I didn't complete my case plan. Is my home safe?
Yes.
I jump through all of the other hoops. Will my children be safe when they return home? That's what we want them to focus on.
Yes.
That's good. I want to back up to some language you were using, because I feel like you put words to what I'm seeing and how I feel. And you said that they're trafficking our children. And before I just pick that up and start using it, I wanted to make sure that it means the same thing to you than me, because I feel like it's legal trafficking, that when I'm watching these Black children, these beautiful Black babies especially, end up being adopted by usually the foster parents up here, they end up with the children. And that's exactly when you say they're trafficking our kids, I'm like, they're legally trafficking, taking them from these young moms, giving them to these white families. But when you say trafficking, is that what you mean? Because I don't want to.
It's absolutely what I mean. It's legal trafficking. It's legal kidnapping. You're 0 to 5 years old is the majority. That's the majority of the children that they're removing. Those are those cute little Black babies that everybody wants. It's so sick. People that historically would have gone down a traditional adoption route are now becoming foster parents with the desire to adopt. So foster parents, when you're coming into this, you should fully understand and accept that this is temporary, and you're at some point going to give this baby back to this mother.
Yes.
But we're not seeing that. These are parents that can't have children on their own, don't want to pay to go down that traditional adoption route, right? Now I can be paid to be a foster parent, use my foster care funding to fight the biological parent in court and keep your baby, because I can't have one on my own. That's what we're seeing. And yes, it's trafficking because the county is allowing it. The federal reimbursements by to the counties from our federal government is the fuel behind all of this. That's why you'll see them displace our children. They get adoption bonuses from the federal government. So if the more you can't do an adoption without terminating parental rights. And so who is it that is the low-hanging fruit? Black families. I can terminate your parental rights and then get this adoption bonus from the federal government for adopting your baby out, and saying that it's in the best interest of the child to adopt it, when the research and data says that it's the exact opposite of that. But yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You've answered some of these.
Do you want me to? Yeah. When we talk about generational cycles and generational trauma, you've talked about like breaking systems. And so when we're thinking about breaking generational cycles, but also breaking systems, what's the difference, and how can families do both?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great question. And I did create some notes related to that because we don't talk, because yes, the system is problematic. Yes, the system is racist. Yes, it is wrong. And we could do a better job.
Mhm.
In community, we could do a better job in our parenting. A lot of the historical trauma that we're dealing with as a result of our history in this country, as a result of slavery and oppression, we're passing
Yes.
down. It's impacting how we parent. A lot of it could be teaching moments, though, right? Do I have to remove
Right.
your child, or could I just provide you some coaching? Could I just,
That part.
a lot of what we're doing at times, we're not even
Yep.
aware that we're doing it. So yes,
Yeah.
I think it's a great, it was a great question. The generational cycles, as well as breaking generational cycles, but as well as um, breaking these systems. Um, Breaking generational cycles means essentially healing within the family from trauma,
Mhm.
patterns, pain that may have been passed down, like cycles of abuse, cycles of addiction, emotional neglect, survival based parenting that's rooted in fear or scarcity, learned distrust,
Yeah.
silence due to past harm, right? Sometimes that's passed down, unfortunately,
Right.
especially with SA.
Yes.
One of the problems that I have with child protection, I'm getting off, but I'm gonna come back. One of the problems that I have with child protection is that it doesn't do a good job of protecting the children that need it. And because SA is so hard to prove, I saw a lot of children. I had to walk a lot of children back to their abusers because
Mhm.
child protection did an investigation, and
Yep.
I can't
I've
find any
seen that
proof
too.
that she was sexually abused. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
um and oftentimes we are silent about it. We've been taught to be
Yes.
silent about it. Um, that was one that was really hard, but it means breaking systems means fighting and changing external structures that harm families, child protection systems that target and over police, courts that
Mhm.
punish poverty instead of offering support,
Yep.
um, education, housing, healthcare. It's a collective work, organizing, advocating, demanding accountability, and then building new systems. Right, the
Mhm.
accountability piece is a huge aspect that's missing. That's one of the things that was removed from our original language. I originally
Mm.
asked for a fine and jail time for any social worker
Yes.
that
Yep.
was found to have lied to remove a child, found to have
Yes.
lied to terminate the parental rights of a parent. Why wouldn't you be held accountable? And I didn't make it
Exactly.
up. There was another state that actually had recently passed a bill, and I just used that language, but they immediately shut that down, and it was reduced to disciplinary action only.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, families can do
And,
both. Start with, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
yeah, I did just want to ask because I do think, and we've talked about this in with a past guest, Shaquana, here in Duluth, and she has history in working as a uh, social worker in the child welfare system here. And I think the one thing that really people don't believe is that that social workers like falsify information. That is really hard, I think, for our community to wrap their minds around that these things are happening. And so, do you have any more thoughts, or just like any just light that you can shed on that? Because I think we need to be telling this community and families, like you're saying, document everything because these things do happen.
They do, absolutely. One of the first things that I do with a parent is have them go through the petition and highlight everything that's false and start to gather
Mm,
any documentation that they have, again, that can refute what's in that petition.
that's
And you're
good.
going to need proof because they
Yes.
have to create a narrative around you that's egregious enough, that the judge would, agree that this is harm to a child, the child is unsafe and needs protection or services. So they have to create these narratives about you. Um, and I always tell parents, because of that, just like you said, document everything, record whenever you can. And it sounds and may feel like overkill or
Hmm.
nonsense, but I promise you it can help to protect you in the end. In court, put it on record. Your attorney if he's contracted with the county, is going to be working with the county attorney's office to come to some sort of an agreement that they can land on comfortably and keep their relationship, right? So oftentimes they'll tell the parent, be quiet. They won't bring up the things that are in the petition. I got in trouble a lot in court as a guardian because I always put it on record. That's the only thing that it matters. Put it on record. And if your attorney won't say it, address the court yourself to say, hey, Your Honor, this didn't happen, X, Y, and Z. It all sounds very unorthodox, but what's happening to us is unorthodox. So we have to fight any way that we can against it, but it happens a lot. In one of these counties that I was a guardian in, on a few different cases, there was a very problematic social worker that always lied about his visits to the family, always lied about what happened in the home. And I was a great guardian, the best guardian, I'm going to say that. There was nothing they could tell me about my family that I didn't already know. I took my job so serious. And the role of the guardian ad litem is to do an independent investigation. And I did that. So I never took the county's word for it. I contacted the providers myself. I kept up on all of my visits. So I knew when the social worker was lying on the family. I brought it to my supervisor. I brought it to their supervisor. Nothing was ever done about this social worker. They even said, yeah, we know. Ha ha ha. Laughed about it. This man was lying about his visits to the family home. But this is the type of thing that happens. And if you don't have someone like an advocate or divine connection to sign that can say, hey, this is wrong, this didn't happen, who's listening to the parent? Who's going to listen to the parent against all of these so-called professionals? This is what our families are up against. So protect yourself by documenting and recording as much as you can.
Thank you.
You know, that's so good because I've seen it where the parents have tried to speak up in court and the judge won't let them speak, say the attorney has to speak for them, but the attorney is doing exactly what you're saying. We've had a meeting, we've said we want them to say, and then they do not say it. You know, and that's been so just devastating. And you know, the only thing they can do is maybe write to the court, and then that becomes public record. You know, when they can't speak.
Right.
Yeah. And so, and I think the other thing too that has been something new that I've saw where they've tried to pit the parents against each other.
Right.
And so we've had a situation where the attorneys have worked together and have told the mom, well, if you say that you know, say something against the dad that we were right, that we should have took the kids from him, then we'll do this for you. Like, I think they were going to stop her termination and give her I just lost exactly what they're going to do. They were going to give her more time.
Yeah.
You know, but the only way they were offering, it's like if she deserves more time, if she deserves this extension because we're running out of time, it should be off
based on
because
that.
she's did everything that y'all told her to say, even before you even, you know, even I'm losing my words today, even though even before you required it, but instead they won't give it to her based off her own merit. Right. But if you do this, if you say that we were right, and that the dad did that. She said, I don't know what he did. I wasn't there. We didn't even live in the same house.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, wow, this has to be. I was like, this is why isn't this illegal? It's at least unethical, you know, and it's just.
And the attorney would not state that there was any ethical dilemma there.
And we were talking to her attorney, like, how can you even present this? Like, don't you see? And I could not straight ask him, like, sounds illegal. She's did it. It's because you all don't have anything on her. She's did everything she's supposed to do, you know. And he was like, "No, it's a good deal. She should take it." She was like, "But I don't know. I wasn't there. We wasn't together. We didn't even live in the same house."
Yeah, it's unfortunate. A number of families are even torn apart because they tell the mom, "You should divorce him, and then you can get the kids," or they'll tell the dad, you know, divorce him. And one of the things that I had with this social worker and others is that they really manipulate the parents to agree to a termination of parental rights. So they'll get the dad to say that he agrees to the termination by threatening him against his other children. Well, if you don't let go of this one, then we can come and take the rest of your children by this other woman. And so they'll get the dads to agree to it that way. But it's not just removing the children. even work to separate those parents. There's a lot of parents
Yes.
who have gotten a divorce and still weren't
Yeah.
reunified with their children after agreeing to
Yep.
the county's suggestion that they get a divorce, which is just, it's
Ugh,
disgusting. But
that's so
yeah,
heartbreaking.
I've seen so many young black fathers at court, like when we're there, we're at trial, agree to terminate their rights. They can say so that you can at least get information for from your child once a year or twice a year. Otherwise, you'll know nothing. You know, you won't know anything about them if we go through this trial and you don't win. And so we've seen them right at day one of trial. These young black fathers sign away their rights just so they can get a picture of their child. And then on the other side of it, we see the pictures and it's the kids from like behind the head. It's never their face. From the
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
side, from behind the head. And they gave up their rights just to, just to do that. And it's just devastating. And then the moms who fight for their kids, it's like if you fight for them, or the fathers, I'm sure there's fathers too. In our situation, has been young moms. It's like, well, then you get nothing. You don't
Yeah.
you don't get the pictures from the back. You don't get the pictures from the side because you fought. You took it all the
yep,
way and you fought for your child.
yep. And they say that they have a
Devastating.
mental illness or something's wrong with his
Yep.
mom, but she's fighting the system for her children as any
Yep.
mom
Mm-hmm.
would fight
Yes.
anyone for their children. But we aren't humanized in this system. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Um, I think I want to just also touch on going back to the healing piece. Um, what are some ways that you've seen healing and rebuilding occur emotionally, spiritually, or maybe even legally after CPS involvement?
yeah. All of the families that I know and have fought for lean on the Lord and have to
Yeah.
get their strength from Him first and foremost. I have one of my staff, actually, I met her while advocating for her to get her son
Mm,
back years ago. And she's
wow.
now a very strong advocate and trainer
That's
for
beautiful.
other families. Yes, she
Yeah.
studied child protection law so hard, in her fight
Wow.
for her child, almost lost her life literally. Her heart burst
Yep.
while she was fighting for her to get her son back.
Oh,
Oh
Lord.
She was
my.
in a coma for a couple of months. We almost lost her. And now she's
Wow.
strong as ever, fighting for other families. And that has been very rewarding for her. Um,
Wow.
it's very difficult for families that haven't been reunified.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
I know that they're leaning on the Lord. I know that,
Mm-hmm.
their faith is still there. I don't see that light with them that I
Yeah.
see with her. And what I've heard
Yes.
from these families is that they're grieving a child that's still living, right? So
Yep.
like,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't know. But for the parents that were able to find their strength in the process, fighting for others has been huge.
Yeah.
Not being quiet about their story, sharing their story.
Yes.
They've created
Yes.
a lot of shame and taboo around child protection involvement for families. So some people don't want to share that they've had a child protection
Yeah.
investigation. So I try to, encourage them by showing them that it wasn't their fault, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't you. This isn't your fault. Talk about what happened because so much of it is occurring behind a veil. It's easier for them to continue to get away with it. But I would
Yep.
just say finding their strength in the Lord, advocating for others, and really loving on the babies that they have remaining for those
Yeah.
that haven't been reunified, unfortunately.
Right. Right.
I want to back up to the new law because one of our things that we're working with young moms, then of course they have, they get pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then they, CPS is automatically informed and show up to the hospital. Is there anything around, any language around that in the new law? Because it's my understanding, there's not even a time limit on it. Like if
Right.
you ever had your rights terminated, then they get the call from the hospital. Um, Anything with that?
Yeah, no, there's
Okay.
not. With previous termination of parental rights, is that what you're asking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, and that's what we'll have to come back to. They're supposed to assess for um safety. They don't have to immediately go and file a new petition for termination of parental rights. They do have to open a new case so that they can assess to, make sure that you've addressed whatever the previous allegations were concerns in the home, but they don't do that often with our families. They'll immediately file that new TPR petition just
Yeah.
because you've had a previous one. Well, I had a TPR 4 years ago because I was, using marijuana and I was
Mhm.
homeless, but I have my own home and I'm not smoking weed anymore. But the social workers aren't doing their due diligence in assessing for that, so that they automatically, so that's the work that we have to do. We have some protections
Yep.
in the law, but there's still a lot that we have to do, and that's one of those things, because we're seeing a lot of families lose their children as a result of their policy around previous
Yes.
Mhm.
TPRs, unfortunately. One of the things that I tell parents to do while you're pregnant, if there's anything that you know, going on that they can raise concern about, start to access some of those services while you're pregnant and start to create a documentation folder, organize a folder showing. So if you're taking parenting classes while you're pregnant, keep a record of that. Keep a record of
That's
your
good.
I'm
completion
writing that down.
certificate. If you're engaged in therapy to address domestic violence or previous patterns of abuse that you've suffered through, etc., keep a record of that. Get a letter from your therapist. Have it at the hospital with you. Take somebody to the hospital with you when it's time for you to have that baby. Do not have that baby alone. If you're
Yep.
working with and I would say connect with an advocate while you're pregnant. Have them come to the hospital with you, with your aunt, with your cousin, with your mom, whoever it is that you want to take that baby. Have them involved early and consistently. Um, while you fight, if you are, because they remove a lot of our babies off the birth, and as soon as they have the baby they're taking them from these hospitals.
Yeah.
So having someone present to be there to take the child is important. Was that the question? I'm sorry, I told you I start to talk
Yep.
about this stuff and get off in a rant, but did I answer the question?
You
You
did.
did. You
Yeah.
did. That was good.
Uh,
Go ahead.
I do have a question. So, in regards to just continuing advocacy at the Capitol, any, I mean, I think there's a lot of professionals who listening to you will say, I need to do something. And so, is there a coalition? Is there a group already that those who are leaders or professionals in this work can join to have a
Well,
voice at the Capitol?
we have the NAACP Child Protection Committee,
Okay.
and while we're
That
based
would be
in
what they would do.
Minneapolis, we can work with anyone, and it should be a statewide effort when we go to the Capitol
Yes.
so that we can represent multiple counties. You can contact me through our contact form on villagearms.org. If you're interested, we have to go back. I'm taking a little breather because, again, it's hard, it's heavy. I'm taking a
Yes.
little
Yeah.
breather, but I do, as long as the Lord says, um, I want to keep fighting. I intend to keep fighting. So contact us. Um, I don't know of any other groups that are fighting for Black families that are harmed by child protection.
Right.
DHS butters the bread of too many agencies. They don't want to
Mhm.
speak out or, speak up against them. Um, so Village Arms, I would say, in the NAACP Minneapolis. So both avenues would be myself. And you don't have to wait to join other groups. I didn't see
Yep.
anyone doing what needed to be done, so I started my own. Start your own. You don't have to wait for
Yes.
Yeah.
police. You don't have to wait for the general public to agree or validate what you're doing. God is allowing you to see what you're seeing for a reason so that you can do something about it.
Right.
And a lot of people worry about their funding. They worry about how it's
Mhm.
going to impact them personally. But if you're doing the right thing, you never have to worry about backlash.
That's
God
right.
going to take care of you on the back end. I haven't lost a thing
Yep.
as a result. I'm still contracting with the counties and the states and still
That's
pushing back
amazing.
on what they're doing to our families because it's
Mhm.
wrong.
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
not seeing it for no reason.
Yeah.
Don't just walk away without addressing it. Can I share really quickly how families can use the African American Family Preservation Act?
Yes,
And
please.
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. And I want to share, it's so much. And this is why I'm taking a breather, you all. We agreed to a phase in of the law.
Right.
Mhm.
It was presented to us by a Black man at DHS, and I won't give his name yet until God releases me to share all that I've experienced with our so-called leaders in this state. It
Mhm.
was presented to me by a Black man, and he said, "Hey, Kelis, would you all agree to a phase in of the law, meaning we start with Hennepin and Ramsey first for the first 2 years so that they can create a template? This is where the largest and most egregious disparities exist. So yes, that makes sense. Let's figure out
Sure.
how this looks in practice and then release
Mhm.
it statewide in 2027. The switcheroo happened without our knowledge. They're
Mm.
phasing it in Hennepin and Ramsey County, meaning they're only applying the law to 30% of new intakes. And they're including screened out cases in that 30%. So just
Wait,
imagine,
what?
Mm.
it makes no sense.
No.
Attorneys are raising concern about it. Advocates are raising concern about it.
Yeah.
It's fallen on deaf ears. So the families that should qualify and that do qualify for the protection under the law aren't allowed. They aren't
Wow.
receiving it. Yeah. That was a switcheroo.
Oh, yeah.
They have the implementations, the statewide work group. I'm on that. But when you're the only one speaking up, you're speaking up
Yeah.
against the system. The legislators won't step in and say, hey, no, we need
Mhm.
to apply it to all the families. You get tired. So I'm getting my mojo
Yes.
back so that I can address all of these things. And in the meantime,
Right.
still remaining at the table so that implementation at least does what it is that we need it to do.
Yes.
And so
Wow.
in 2027, it'll be released statewide. Hennepin and Ramsey, they're doing a 10% quarterly increase. So this tiered process where they're
Mm.
increasing the intakes by 10%. So yeah, we fought for 7 years and are still fighting even after implementation,
Right.
still not getting what it is that we need because there's so much bureaucracy, there's so much
Mhm.
red tape involved, there's so many people that are working against us, Black and white, and I'll just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But once this law is fully applied in the state, Black families can use it. So if your family is under investigation, you have the right to request that decisions reflect the child's cultural identity and preserve their familial and community connections. You can ask the caseworker directly, how are you applying the African American Family Preservation Act to
Mhm.
my case? It emphasizes preventing out of home placement by requiring the agency to provide services. So families should ask for culturally specific family preservation services, in-home support, therapy, parenting assistance, substance use, etc. Ask for connections to Black-led organizations for advocacy and services. It requires that the county engage kin, so families can request kinship or community placement. So before any out of home placement, relatives and culturally connected adults must be considered first under this law. So tell the agency, I want my child placed with a relative or someone that they know from our community. I say I don't consent to placement with strangers when safe family options are available, and put it in
Mm.
writing. Oftentimes, and we see this a lot in Minneapolis with social workers who don't want to go to North Minneapolis or get engage certain
Mhm.
communities. And so they'll say, well, there's no relatives available.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always flag cases to the child protection directors, put it in writing, CC the commissioners to say, hey, my child was removed on XY on July 16th, 2025. I informed the social worker that my mom, whose contact information is X, Y, and Z, is available. The child's father is available. This is his contact information. And take that information to court. Have those family members come to court with you to say, hey, we're available, and make as much noise about it as you can, because what they're doing currently is against the law. So don't take it lightly.
Right.
I have a question. Can counties voluntarily, so I'm going to talk just a little bit about St. Louis County. So
Mhm.
can they voluntarily opt in early?
Yes, they can. And DHS has offered that for counties to opt in. Yep, but they wouldn't get the funding that's going to be available
Right.
until
Right.
2027. So some of them have been using that as an excuse. And one of the things I continue to say, and that's why I'm glad I'm on this statewide work group, because they keep talking about it's going to take millions of dollars and we need so many new social workers to do this. No, it's about doing what you do better. It's about a change in policy and practice.
Exactly.
We really don't want
Right.
more social workers, because that's going to mean more removals, more harm caused.
Yeah.
We want you to do what you're doing differently. We piloted the African American
Exactly.
Family Preservation Act in Hennepin County over a 3-year period. We served over 200 families. We closed 90% of our cases, over 90%, without ever removing a child. And these were investigation cases. So the more quote unquote higher risk cases,
Right.
we didn't remove those kids. And we did it by implementing the law. And that was just with 4 Village Arms staff. And I think there were 8 social workers on the African American Family Preservation Act unit. And we were able to show how this law works in practice. It's just about caring and making active efforts. It's not about more social workers or more money.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So any final, this has been so good.
I know,
could
we
go
could
on
keep
and on.
going.
But just any final words to families, and then also to just the community and social workers and the other nonprofits and all these people who are listening. I would say specifically white here in Duluth.
To families first, I would say don't expect, because families get caught up on, and they've done studies to show that racism has the effect of like war and trauma on a soldier. So like that PTSD is the same. And so our parents will get caught up on the fact that this is wrong. And I can't help them see past, yes, we know it's wrong. And we have to do X, Y, and Z and fight them on the back end. So don't get stuck, I would say, on the fact that what you're experiencing is wrong. They're breaking the law. Yes, we know that that's what we're saying. And you're not going to find resolution within the framework of your case. You would get your babies out of court, get your babies back home with you, and then find avenues to fight these folks. Contact the NAACP, contact an attorney to file a lawsuit, but don't try to do it while your child is displaced. They're going to call you non-compliant. They're going to say that you need another psych eval. They may even say that you need medication as a result of you fighting for your child. So follow the steps to get your child back home and then fight these people.
Yes.
That's so good.
For social workers, I would say for those that literally got into the field to do no harm, there's a culture that exists within child protection that is harmful to families. If you can see that, don't continue to turn a blind eye to it. If you know that that child shouldn't be removed, don't remove the child just because this is the way that it's always been done. It takes one person. It takes one person to start to stand up and speak out. To foster parents, if you really want to act in the best interest, the long-term best interest of this child, support that family. You can stay in the child's life by being a positive impact to the parent. Be a godparent. But you don't have to fight this mom or this dad who does love the child more than you ever could. And this child who loves and wants to remain with their parent, you're doing more harm by fighting them now. And I can't tell you the number. I could talk about this forever. I'm glad I'm coming down there so we can talk more. I can't tell you the number of foster parents who became adoptive parents who, when that Black child got to the age of 14 or 15,
Yep.
they were right back in child protection court to do a voluntary termination of parental
Yep.
rights.
Yep.
Like clockwork. The number of
seen it.
children that were in residential treatment who have
Yep.
been adopted as Black babies who are now teenagers
Yep.
in multiple different treatment facilities
That's correct.
because they don't want to be in that home and that parent doesn't want you there. They don't even know how to deal with you culturally. They can't answer your questions. They don't understand who you are. Our babies start to hate themselves. They hate, I can't tell you, I'm dark skinned, dark as they come. I would have to pour so much love into our dark-skinned babies to accept their complexion, their hair, their skin, because they were the only ones in their community. They're sending our babies to counties with 1% African-American population. How do you think that's turning out for them in the long term? And how many adults do we have to hear from that say how they were harmed as a result of their adoption? So foster parents, adoptive parents, if you want to do right by that child, support the parent. Be a godparent. Take them on vacations, and help them to see another side, but don't fight that parent for that child.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelis. This
Thank
has
you.
been amazing. We
Thank
look
you both.
forward to you coming to Duluth
I'm
and
looking
just pouring
forward to
into
it
us
too.
more.
We're so excited.
And the attorney that I'm bringing, she's just as passionate. We could talk about this stuff forever.
Absolutely. Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. Any final words?
No, thank you. I look forward to
Okay.
seeing you all. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us today. If something spoke to you, please share this with a friend who you think could really benefit from this episode. And remember, to help our show grow and reach more people just like you, make sure to follow the show and leave a 5-star review. And if you want to continue to have critical and courageous conversations, well, then we'll see you in the next episode.